The Pan family, this is Bick and Han Pan. They got married in Toronto and ended up settling in Scarborough, Canada. And then in 1996, they had their first daughter Jennifer, and in 1998 they had their second child Felix. They were strict parents, extremely controlling of their kids. They were terrified of Jennifer getting distracted from her studies by boys. Despite their best effort to keep her from dating, she met another boy named Daniel Wong in 11th grade. They started dating, although this had to be a secret. Jennifer received early admission into Ryerson University. However, Jennifer had failed one of her calculus subjects in high school. They ended up revoking her early access. She told everyone in her life that she was still going to go to this school, including her parents. It is when she created a fake acceptance letter, and gave it to her parents. It turns out that Jennifer never graduated high school. Han Pan wanted Jennifer to become a pharmacologist, and she agrees. She told her parents that she planned to attend Ryerson University. She's going there for 2 years, and then, she's going to transfer to the University of Toronto and get into their pharmacology program. Jennifer told them that she was going on all scholarship money, and 2 years later, her parents think that she was at Ryerson University. At this time, Jennifer suggested that maybe she should move out of her parents' house with a friend. She had a friend named Topaz. However, she wasn't staying with Topaz. During the week when she was going to college, she stayed at her friend Daniel's house. Another 2 years went by of her parents believing that she's still in school. She told her parents she was volunteering at a blood testing lab called Sick Kids. However, her parents noticed that she did not have a uniform or a key card for Sick Kids. One day, Jennifer's parents said that they wanted to bring her to the hospital. They went in there looking for her, and she hid out for a long time in the emergency room, just hiding somewhere. The following day, they called Topaz, and they asked her where Jennifer was, and Topaz said that she was not there. Later on, she came home, and they ended up putting her on the spot, questioning her, and eventually, she confessed that she didn't work at Sick Kids. She did not go to the University of Toronto, that she was living with Daniel. Still, she decided to keep them under the impression that she graduated high school and went to Ryerson University before Toronto. Her mom and dad were very pissed off. They took away her cell phone, her laptop. They wanted to cut off her connection with the outside world. They started tracking her mileage in her car. Her dad gave her the ultimatum of going to school or being kicked out. And he also told her that there is no way for her to see Daniel, which was heartbreaking for her, and they end up coming with a plan to take out both of her parents. Daniel connected Jennifer with an acquaintance of his named Linford Crawford, and he was nicknamed Homeboy. Now he said that he usually charged about $2,000 for this type of task. However, he would give them friends and family discount. It would only be $10,000 to take out her parents. That night was a pretty ordinary evening. At 9:35, Jennifer walks downstairs, goes in, and says goodnight to her mom while watching television, and then she went to the front door and secretly unlocks it. There was also a third hitman who ended up joining in, and his name was Eric Carty. Linford, David, and Eric, all walked through the Pan family front door. Jennifer told police that she was sitting in her room and heard footsteps from people she didn't know. According to Jennifer, he then made her go around the house and get any money that she had. After this, Jennifer says they took her back upstairs and tied her to a railing. They took her parents downstairs, and they shot them both. This is when Jennifer ends up calling 911. Han is not dead. He was able to crawl upstairs to the main floor of the house and was frantically screaming. He runs out of the house, and this is where one of his neighbors saw him who was about to leave for work, and he sees this man come screaming out of the house, covered in blood. The neighbor called 911 as well. The police and the ambulance arrived, and they took Han straight to the hospital, where he was put into an induced coma. No one knew what was going on in the house but Jennifer. The York Regional Police interviewed Jennifer that night, and basically, she told them that 2 men came in the house, started taking money from her, tied her to the railing, and then took her parents downstairs and shot them. Bick's funeral was held on November 15, 2010, at the Ogden Chapel in Scarborough. During the funeral, the police had someone there specifically spy on Jennifer and see how she acted. She didn't show emotions at all, and the police ended up surveilling her a lot of the time. One thing that wasn't adding up to police at first was that this was supposedly a burglary, that these people invaded the house and were asking for money. It doesn't add up because the keys to their Lexus were sitting in plain view on the counter. Why wouldn't someone take a car? There wasn't a single electronic stolen, no jewelry or anything like that, and they even discovered that there was still money hidden in the house. They also thought it was strange that they weren't carrying any crowbar with them. It seemed like they knew that the front door was unlocked and just waiting for them, and the thing that wasn't adding up was why intruders would leave Jennifer completely unharmed. If they wanted to get rid of all the witnesses, then they would have killed her too. 3 days after this all happened, on November 12th, Han woke up from his coma. Surprisingly, he remembered everything from that night. He said that while the men were in the house that night, he remembered Jennifer talking to one of them like friends. He saw them. He said that her arms were not tied behind her back, she was not connected to the railing, she was walking around with these people around the house. They decided to bring her in for a third interview. They were really at that point where they were starting to blame Jennifer to see how she would react and see if they could get her to spill the truth. Eventually, she cracked, and she said that she was lying to them. She said that she was depressed, that her life sucked, she was on house arrest and such, and that she wanted someone to come in and kill her, but they got confused, and they got her parents instead. Police ended up arresting Jennifer. Eventually, the police could figure out who the men were involved in the attack, by looking through phone records, text messages, and such. She had gotten rid of her SIM card, but some were still on her iPhone. They eventually arrested all of them. The trial began on March 19, 2014, and lasted almost 10 months. And, since there were already text messages proof that she hired them to do this, her only defense was to pretend she was hiring them for a different reason. She went there and said she tried to cancel, and they wouldn't let her. Her defense started saying that she would have to pay regardless and that she would have to pay them not to attack at this point. However, the argument was weak and defeated in court pretty quickly because there were over 100 messages that day, between Jennifer and Daniel and the other guys talking about what would happen to her parents that night. However, all of them were convicted on December 13, 2014. Each of them received a life sentence without any possibility of parole for 25 years. Jennifer's dad and his brother Felix ended up requesting court-ordered protection on them, where she could have no contact with them. And the judge honored this. She was not allowed to talk to either of them or have any contact with Daniel either. Jennifer's dad is unable to work due to his injuries. He's depressed. That's it for today. Comment down below your thoughts about the fake life of Jennifer Pan.